Welcome to the Idea Podcast. Good morning, Honorable Flavia Kalule. We are most honored to have you on the Idea Podcast.
Thank you. Good morning, Mark.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Thank you too. So we'll start with the person you are. Maybe you tell us about yourself. Who is Honorable Flavia Kalule?
Honorable Flavia Kalule is Nawagabe Kalule Flavia in full. I usually refer to myself as girl from Buteka because Buteka is my home village located in Kassanda sub-county, Kassanda district, in Kassanda North constituency. I am the woman member of parliament for Kassanda district. I am also the chairperson of the National Unity Platform, Women League, and currently the representative of the Interparliamentary Union. I am a women's rights activist. And I speak a lot for women and girls, especially on issues regarding gender and human rights. I am also a peace-loving Ugandan who is ready for a new Uganda that we were denied in the 2021 elections, general elections. But most importantly, I'm a simple girl from Buteka who just aspires to have a better Uganda in which we can all live and grow and our kids can grow and we can prosper in very many ways. I'm a teacher by profession, English language and literature. I taught in 2 schools, Namiriango College and Our Lady of Good Counsel, Gayaza.
I'm also honored that you are one of my teachers and we are having this moment.
Thank you.
How
honored
do you
to be with you.
Then get introduced to elective politics?
So when I left teaching, I joined an organization called the Forum for Women in Democracy, Forward, and where I worked for about 7 years. And while there, I was working with the Women and Leadership Program, and our biggest responsibility and major factor was to work with women leaders, especially women at local government councils, women members of parliament, to work with different women in public offices, civil leaders. So it became quite inspiring and it became quite interesting to work with these women. Although while I was at Makerere University, I was the chairperson of CCE, Complex Hall, and I was also the secretary to the Makerere Debating Club, and I was a guild minister. So it became, I had that passion right from Makerere University, and I knew that at one point I would evolve into a political leader in this country. I just didn't know when. So having worked with Ford for about 6-7 years, I felt that enough was enough. I needed to move from rhetoric to action, and so in the 2016 general elections, I contested for national elections for the very first time in Mubende district, where I contested as a member of parliament, woman MP, and I emerged second out of the 4 candidates. So here I am. Kassanda district was broken off Mubende district, and yeah, here we are now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what as a person, we're looking at this journey of yours that is incredible, by the way. From of course teaching from those 2 schools where I've been to one. I know it's tough. What really motivates you as a person? What are those driving facts that keep you going with this whole thing?
What really motivates me is waking up to see that Ugandans have, especially Ugandan girls and women, have a voice, and they can ably be represented in whichever political or public space or private space that they're in. I would really want to see that young girl growing up knowing that I have these role models, women role models that have inspired me and have helped me achieve my dreams, aspire for more, not settle for less. So that is one of the biggest inspirations that I have every day. Of course, I have my biggest role model and inspiration, who was my mom, the late Florence Kalule Nalwanga. She was very political. She was a teacher. I moved very closely in her journey. She was a teacher by profession, primary teacher, and she also was very interested in politics. And at the end of the day, she became an RIDC in 3 different districts. And I used to move with her everywhere I should go. So I closely watched how she would do her work, engage with people in communities, And I felt she had a lot of power to represent people's issues and needs and concerns. And so I loved the way she would interact with them and give them hope, but also give them solutions. So she's also one of my biggest inspirations ever. It's just unfortunate that I grew up to join politics when she was no longer with me, because she died when I was just 16 years. And so those are some of the things that I look at every day, fighting for human rights. And you say, you know, why do people belittle others? Well, we all know that human rights, human rights are inalienable. Human rights are not asked for. They are freely given because you're born with them. Human rights are things that you always work towards. And we shouldn't be begging any government or anyone that we need this right, we need this, we need this. But every time you see the human rights violations across Africa, across Uganda, in your different spaces, even the tiniest of spaces like Kassanda district, you start asking yourself, who is speaking for these people? So if I can be able to be their voice in one or the other, then why not let it be? So those are some of the things that inspire me on a regular basis.
What really is, in accordance to feminism in general, what really is that message that we are looking out to? Because when you read and go through most of all this work and all this activism, the message is never clear. It looks like one party wants to come on top of the other, and it always comes into the fights and all that. What really is the clear message that we all need as human beings to coexist with equity and equality and empowerment? No.
I think for me, it shouldn't be a power struggle of who is stronger, who is weaker, who should be on top, who should be lower. No. I think it's an equality question, that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So how can we bring about equality, fairness, justice to all parties? So why are you deciding to educate a boy child in the best schools and then educate a girl child in a rural school that is close to you, so that you want them to continue working with you every time you want? So that means that they are going to get less attention, they are going to give less attention to education, and they are going to be more concentrating on the the homework or the work at home, you know. So it's a question of, if you are giving priority to one person or one gender, can you also prioritize the other gender in terms of their needs and concerns, in terms of the solutions that you're bringing about? It's not about glorifying one and then leaving the other suffocated, no. So I think for me, even as women's rights activists, the gender equality question, the question of feminism, those are things that all work towards the same thing, uplifting both sexes. But the fact that we have had the male gender dominant for a very long time, then it has become extremely difficult to move these sexes at the same pace. So that's why it's important. That's why I think you find these days there is more advocacy for the girl child to catch up with the male gender, which wasn't the case. And so you find people saying, oh, but now you want them to go on top of us, you want them to step on us. And that's really, it's a question of equality. They've been left behind for so many years, so we are trying to bring them at the same level so that we can move more or less at the same level.
Interesting. I also really believe in equal opportunities for everyone as a person. So seeing as you've transitioned from civic and political activist to the political journey, what advice would you have for people like you who are following suit, who are in the civic, who are still in the civil society and doing their activism from there, but they would wish to come follow you into the political journey?
No, I think it's a big question of what do you want to be, how do you want to influence in whichever space you're in. I know that civil society and politics and public spaces, they are all working towards a common goal of uplifting people, empowering communities, of ensuring that there's gender equality, ensuring that there's fairness, humanity, and all. But now it depends on you as an individual. Where would you want to influence from more or better? So if you're to look at those who are aspiring to leave civil society like I did and join politics, active politics, yes, I completely say this is the time, because we need more civil society activists into parliament, because most of the times we keep complaining from the sidelines, and it's so easy to complain from the sidelines when you're just a bystander watching whatever is happening, and you say, all those politicians, they don't listen. All those politicians, we don't have enough of them. We don't have enough women politicians who are articulating female issues and all that. But until you get into the space, that's when you realize that there is more to what people say. That's when you realize that sometimes influencing and changing laws and policies doesn't just take an activist point of view. It takes a lot. It takes you making allies even with the people that you vowed never to work with sometimes. It takes you making lots of compromises sometimes. It takes you being extremely principled in order to do this. And I think for me, if we have more people joining from civil society, those who really know what they want, those who can't be compromised financially and will stand by what the people believe in, I think it's good for us. So let them come and join us. We need more of you. We need those pushers that can push you, push the parliamentarians or push the powers that be, the ministers and those people that, and the president, to move them into the right direction. I think we need more of those in parliament. So you're welcome. They should all join us
so,
as soon as yesterday.
Then what are the effects of people like you who are migrating from of course the civic society to politics, because politics then changes everything. They are of course spearheads. What's in for social justice? Don't you think there's an effect of how the social society is now left blank when strong people like you now move into politics, where in politics it's a little bit hard for you to really change the status quo?
Okay, now I'll just say this, Mark. One thing is, every space we occupy is extremely difficult to change the status quo. I have worked with civil society for 7 years, and 7 years actively in a civil society organization, but also as an independent consultant for this period before I joined politics. And so this is what I saw. It is difficult to change the status quo from wherever you are. It takes time, it takes grit, it takes courage, it takes a lot of understanding, it takes a lot of patience. But one thing is for sure, that there are spaces that make decisions. There are spaces where when you're there, you will influence faster and easier. You won't have to do a lot of lobbying for you to get the decision or to change that social norm that you want to change, or to change that policy that you want to change, or to change that law, because you are the policy maker, you're the lawmaker. Yeah. So it becomes easier if you have this background of the social injustice and what you want to work towards, and you're in that space. So if I am in parliament, the people in civil society know they have an ally in parliament, so they don't need to work twice as hard to get allies on board when they already have us there. So it becomes extremely important that everyone pushes from their comfort zones and from their spaces, so that together, collectively, we can then work towards a certain goal. Because if I am trying to get the law on the order paper changed, and the people in civil society are trying to lobby me to get it there, but also the activists are also pushing using their fundamental ways of change, then it's a collective effort. And so at the end of the day, we all get to one goal, and it's not a lamentation of, oh, you see, you've left this side because this side is aspiring to get here, or is aspiring to work with these people to get their issue done. So it's a chain of reaction, and I think it's good to have the strongest links at every opportunity that we get and every space that we can get at.
So what projections do you have over your political career for the next decade?
I have plenty of projections, but key among these are three. The very first one is, of course, to effectively represent the people of Kassanda district, because they chose me to be their voice. They chose me to articulate issues that they have at heart. They chose me to be able to discuss with them and share with them findings from parliament, but also involve them in parliamentary work. So yes, at least in as far as getting their views concerned. So I really anticipate using that and amplifying their voices for better, and speaking boldly for the change that we so desire. So that is one of the elements, that is one of the projections that I have over the next 5 years. But of course, I know also that I am not just a member of parliament for Kassanda. I represent a bigger part of the National Unity Platform, those are the women. And so I also hope to merge my work as a member of parliament and as a chairperson of NUP Women's League to ensure that women have better policies that affect and influence their lives. Women have better laws that will not suffocate their voices. Women have better livelihoods. Of course, we are looking at a number of activities geared towards amplifying women's livelihoods, both civic, both political, and also activities that are economic, to build their economic abilities at the same time. I anticipate being that person. Nabage Kalule Flavia is going to become a household name, like for everyone in Uganda and internationally, because I'm going to be that legislator that young women look up to, that the older generations will admire and say we have someone who is standing in our gap and who is continuing with the legacy that we left. And I think it's going to be extremely exciting for civil societies to watch me grow into this space, because I am a child of the women's movement. Literally, I have grown up in the women's movement of Uganda. I have grown up in civil society. And so it will be quite interesting to work with all those spaces in Parliament and to uplift our voices, but also at the same time get the laws that are so badly desired. So I think, for me, it's a question of how more I have planned to do this work, because I have a very clear work plan for both Kassanda and Uganda, and also a representative of the IPU. The human rights issues, especially that we are grappling with, given the former election, are going to be highlighted glaringly in the IPU when I am there. And so I hope that we will be able to get international bodies to work with us, especially the opposition that is already stifled, and we can't freely reach out to the people and can't freely engage in governance processes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to slide into now more of the elections and elective. There's an emerging school of thought that democracy is failing at both the global perspective and the local perspective. So we've had cases of elections being rigged, not just in Uganda. We've also had the last 2 elections from America, which is probably a superpower, have issues. Everyone has always had issues, right from Hillary to then former President Donald Trump. Yeah. And issues. Then when we fall back into our own country, we have for forever had all these issues with our democracy and our elective process. What's your viewpoint on democracy in general? Yeah.
First of all, democracy. Of course, we grew up cramming the whole definition of democracy, a government of the people, for the people, by the people, which is really interesting. But much as we are cramming it when you say those words, they have depth of meaning. They show you that democracy should entirely be focused on people and around people's needs and concerns. It's extremely devastating to see that we are in a country that doesn't respect democratic rule. And despite the fact that we have it on paper, when you get to the pragmatic bit of it, it is not seen, it is not shown by the government in power. So for me, rigging elections is just one part of those undemocratic principles that we have always had as a country, that we need to forego, that we need to do away with entirely. Because, I mean, why would you put up elections and give people hope that they can elect leaders of their own and get the leaders of their choice, and at the end of the day you know that you're not going to be able to give them that person or those leaders that they voted for, and you're going to impose yourself on them, as President Museveni is currently doing, and a number of some of the MPs that are under his docket, the NRM. So it shows that as a country we are yet to grow in our democracy. It shows that as a country we are still lacking in our democratic principles, and as a country we don't know the meaning of democracy, that which has caused the very high levels of apathy, because eventually people give up, people get tired of lining up, making extremely long lines to go and vote, putting in their all, trying to safeguard their votes, and at the end of the day they get the same result. Because and you see, it's funny because the examples are even there in broad daylight, the rigging done in broad daylight, the militarization of elections where people are voting, you know, under a military rule. You have UPDF and police officers manning the polling stations, manning and, you know, basically in charge of the voter boxes and all that, the ballot boxes and all that. beating people, threatening them, intimidating them, you know. So it becomes extremely difficult to work in such an environment. And so I think Uganda's democracy is non-existent. I think we need, as a country, we have a lot to do to get that democracy, but the challenge falls on us, the younger generation, because the older generation has already wasted Uganda. And so it's up to us to see how to get back.
With that exactly, do you think, or in your perspective, do you assume that we should reconstruct our own democracy as probably Africa, so that, because it looks like now the younger generation of people like you are joining politics are subject to a system that was designed many, many years ago, and then we are still falling right back into it. Yes.
Of course, yes. I've always shared this, that the problems of Africa are, and Uganda, when you zero it down, are entirely a leadership problem, you know. So if we, the young people, are able to take up the leadership of the continent, the leadership of our countries, it will become easier. But easier how? You see, so many times the young people look at politics on the periphery and they keep saying, lamenting, we love lamenting and saying, all those guys, they have wasted our resources, they have stolen our money, they are not listening to our voices and all that. But from the sidelines, and the sidelines are not going to help us until we get a collective of young people, like-minded people, who can actually think about the prosperous Africa or Uganda. How do we get forward? How do we get our democracy on track? How do we define our own democracy as Africans? How can we be able to practice what we have defined for ourselves? I think then it becomes easier. But that is when we have more of us, people who think like us, in these places of leadership, these positions of leadership. Because if we continue being on the sidelines and we are talking about the health sector, but you are dealing with the health sector, for example, in Uganda, that is currently on a sick bed. Actually, I think it is right now the sick man of Uganda at the moment, because you have doctors who are in there, but doctors who are manning the health sector, but the doctors that don't have the heart for the people because they have a mafia on top of them. So even while we lament and we want to get into these smaller positions where we want to be able to create change, it becomes difficult as long as you have a head that is not willing to move with you. So unless we take away the head and then we get more of us into those spaces, then it will become easier for us to man and govern our countries.
What gains do you think have been made by Uganda as a republic for the last 59 years or so?
Definitely, Uganda has had a number of gains. And for me, I think the biggest gain is with the women emancipation. It is so interesting to see that from the first woman minister, the first minister that we had for women affairs, that is Honorable Joyce Mpanga, to where we are now, we have made great strides, because at the moment, at the time of the Dr. Miriam Matembes, at the constitutional making processes, review processes, the Dr. Miriam Matembes were very few. The Sarah Antiros were extremely few. The late Honorable Sarah Antiro, the Rose Kalema, they were really few at the time. But the fact that they stood their ground and said, hey, women need space, women need voices, their voices to be heard, women need to be recognized for who they are and their abilities, not just for their gender and their sex. Women need to be moved from the kitchen to the boardrooms. Women need to take up leadership positions, but even they need to be educated, because before, the education was basically for men. The boy child and the girl child was basically prepared to run a home and get married and, you know, be there. So I think for me, the Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of the 1990s that came in and gave that space to the women to grow and mushroom and sprout and become who they are, is a better version of the Yoweri Kaguta Museveni we have now, because now the Yoweri Kaguta Museveni we have now is giving women space and suffocating them at the same time. In fact, we call it a python syndrome, or a python effect, because you gave us the space, but you know, as a python, it engulfs you, slowly it kills you and suffocates you until you have no breath left. That is now the Museveni we have. Gave us that space, but now he's taking back, suffocating that space, and we can't really do anything in it, despite the numbers of women that we have in leadership. They can't do anything because they have someone who has tightly held them from allowing them to sprout. So yeah, I think that is one of the things. I also think that we have gained from the time of the Idi Amin's and the pigeonhole constitution of Dr. Obote that was put in there. In terms of governance, there's some level of, I say some level because it is suffocated, it is still stifled, it is still, in fact, some places it is non-existent, of freedom of speech. That you're able to say Parliament can discuss laws and pass them, but at the same time, there are certain laws that they pass that are extremely coercive, that are extremely, what is the word, that are not pro-people laws. And that is because we have leaders that have deviated from what people really want. What are the concerns of the people? What are the issues what are the desires of Ugandans? And so you have those people that give you and take at the same time. So much as I would say we have moved, I think in the last 59 years, we have moved as a country, infrastructure and all that. But the longer the government in power has stayed in power, the more it has destroyed our biggest milestones. So now we've been taken aback to where we started from. So now you see the militarization, you see the human rights violations, you see the health sector that has died, you see the education that's crumbling. So now we are just going back because one of the reasons is overstaying in power. You see, when you stay too much in a place, you don't add value to the place. You start destroying the things that you did that were really good. And so that's where the whole lamentation right now is.
Currently, in our whole electoral systems, where do you see the gaps and how do you suppose they can be fixed?
Oh, we have so many gaps in our electoral system. And having just come out of an election, I am glad that we are able to beat some of those gaps. But also that comes from a very good reading of the contextual environment and planning how to outmaneuver some of those gaps. But for people that cannot do that and where we really would want free and fair elections, it becomes extremely difficult. So one, we have an electoral commission that is appointed by the president. It is extremely difficult to bite the hand that feeds you. So we all know that even much as they put up a face and a show of we are conducting free and fair elections, they will never entirely be free and fair because they have an existing force behind them that is telling them, if you don't deliver this, because I put you in this position, you're definitely going to lose your job. And so that is one of the biggest gaps that we have, the Electoral Commission being appointed by the president. And of course, we have the whole song of free and fair elections that are never free and fair because of the different challenges that we see. Electoral materials reaching very late at polling stations, not enough at polling stations. When they have already been tampered with at the polling stations, we have supervisors, we have registrars, some of whom are mainly working for the government, and so their biggest concern is how to get the people in government back into power, not how do we deliver a free and fair election. We have the whole militarization of elections, of soldiers manning and running around the country. It's as if at the time of elections we are in a war, because the only people you see, the only vehicles, the only armor that you see
are military.
Military. And so there are high levels of intimidation of the people during the electoral processes that so many ought not to even go and vote because they feel like, no, our vote is not going to count. Then we also have the whole choice of, with all this that we are seeing, even if I voted for the person that I love, we will not be able to get that vote. So I would rather give it to the same person so that we know that they really took the votes. And then we have the whole violence, electoral violence that we are always witnessing. And when I talk about electoral violence, people cannot freely move to go and vote for the people that you want. There's a lot of beating, harassment, and of course then I zero it down to the violence against women in elections, the sexual harassment that's embedded in there a number of women confess to sexual harassment every election. Of course, we also have the economic violence. So many people are unable to pull the resources they need for elections, because elections have been highly monetized at the moment. Especially this leaves out so many young people, so many women. You have the whole godfather syndrome, that if you don't have this person holding your hand and directing you in elections, then you're not going to be able to make it on your own. And so you have to look for people you can cling to in order for you to build a character as a candidate in an election. The electoral malpractices, it is just too gross. It is everywhere. It is staring us in the face. So if we continue this way, I don't think we have hope in elections. I think we just need entirely a new system of governance of elections to overhaul the old one that we have.
You have spoken of election violence, and also I remember very vividly that you and the party you belong to have participated in the Arua by-election, which is by far one of the most violent elections we've had.
Yeah.
It has also cost us lives as Ugandans, leaving even other people disabled. Do you at some point feel like this was a mistake? Do you regret the party taking part in this by-election?
No, definitely there is no regret, because if this is the long walk to freedom, then we have to take it. We have no way out, because you cannot simply watch by and say, hey, because we know there is a very strong arm of the government, the army that is going to take over elections, and that definitely do not want anyone to participate, or they are trying to threaten everyone or intimidate everyone from participating, and you also sit back and watch. No, that's not the way to go. Iron sharpens iron. You fight fire by fire. There is no way you're going to say, simply because these guys are too strong for me, I'm not going to engage in any way. No. So we don't regret as NUP having participated in this election, or even the previous by-elections, including the Arua by-election.
Yeah.
Our only regret are so many lives that we lose in these elections. It becomes extremely hurting and extremely devastating for us to witness Ugandans continuously losing their lives and shedding blood at the arm of a dictator, a dictator who puts up elections, yet they don't want to participate in those elections, or who puts up elections for sure, well knowing that they don't want to be voted out, because clearly people no longer have love for the ruling party. Clearly people don't have any desire for the president who is with us. Yes. He's just governing us, just ruling us by a very tight grip, and a lot of stiffness that comes with the territory. But people have voted so many times for the president Museveni to get out of Uganda, but because of the so many factors that we are aware of, he's still here with us. So I think for us, the loss of lives, which come with the elections, because anyone who goes into an election goes knowing there is the possibility, yes, it's a battle, definitely. There is the possibility of losing your life. Elections in Uganda, as they are right now, there's a possibility of losing your life and a possibility of retaining it. I remember when I was talking to someone from NUP, and I think I was talking to the First Lady, Babi Kyagulanyi, and we are sharing a light moment immediately after elections. She mentioned one very important thing, and she said, we thank God that we came out alive, because we didn't even know that we would be alive at this time. So if elections have taken us to an extent where you move in, you become a candidate in an election that has been organized by an electoral commission that is governed by one president who is also participating in that very election, and you don't even know how the odds are going to be, because ideally as a candidate you'd say, I would either win or lose. Let it be that, but not I will either die or remain alive. So for us to start having thoughts of, I am glad I am alive, I am glad so many of us came out alive, I am glad that we are still in this fight, but also you think about there's so many people that have died in the election. It just shows us how failed we are as